It is Jon Moxley and Swerve Strickland for the AEW Championship. And Swerve's music plays, and out comes Virgil Hawkins.
Is that the alter ego of one Static Shock?
That would be it. Yes.
Wow. You knew that off the top of your head, I bet.
Easily way. I watched every episode of Static Shock.
I'm much more of a Marvel fan than DC fan, but cool to see Swerve, give a shout out to a lesser known character.
So he's out with Nana, and then Moxley makes his way in. And you know what? I don't think Jon Moxley is going to be doing Bloodsport this year. So he brought Bloodsport to Dynasty for our opening sequences here, where we had a mount by Jon Moxley, which Taz accurately noted is a pin in our sport. That should be his finisher, the mount.
I mean, it depends if the shoulders are down. You can mount somebody without their...
Well, Swerve did get his shoulder up here, and then he was the aggressor. Shafir is getting involved early on, and then Jon Moxley just starts drilling Swerve above the eye with his elbow and is clearly looking to just bust him open here, and then starts headbutting it.
Are we talking, like, was this hard way? Like, or was this an attempt at hard way? Because
so I do not know if it did not look like he opened him up with all of this, because it wasn't until he came up from the desk that he had blood. And then by the end of the match, it was like this cut had like healed itself. So he went from Static Shock to Wolverine over 20 minutes because, like, dude, there was no blood, and it was like this man had like recovered already in this 25-minute match. But
the announcers were
I do feel like he was trying to open him up hard way. That certainly looked to be the intent.
Me too. And the announcers were pointing out a hematoma. I didn't get a close enough look to be able to say whether or not. But like, if he was just using a blade, you wouldn't really have that.
Well, he was nailing him with these elbows, so it may have been a delayed swelling. I could absolutely believe that, because it looked like he was going very much for your Brock Randy Orton, maybe like a lesser violent version of that.
Again, so yeah, and maybe by morning we'll like have a lot more clarity of it. But if it was an attempt at hard way, I guess I have to ask why.
It makes
like
no sense.
Why in AEW when like anybody, especially in a Jon Moxley match, can just take like we've seen Swerve deliver incredible blade jobs. So like why would this have been different tonight?
It's going for that kind of reaction. Like it makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah,
okay. But neither does getting dropped onto a board of nails either. So you have to shock people. Like that's obviously the thought process. It's ridiculous.
Oh, that blood's fake, or that blood wasn't drawn real. This one was actually drawn from a punch. Oh my god. Yeah, that's the reaction.
I guess so. Okay. Well, as Swerve gets thrown over the desk, and Excalibur just yells, "Oh shit!" And Swerve is then cut open as he comes up, and Mox is biting at the wound. He's at one point pretty much fish hooking this wound. It was absolutely grotesque. And then goes for we get an inverted triangle, a Kimura from Moxley, then to a triangle when Swerve finally slams free. So Moxley then goes to the bulldog choke, and Swerve kicks him off and finally manages a rolling flatliner before hitting 3 house calls, and Shafir gets in with the briefcase. Nana steps up to Shafir and gets in her face, and then Shafir delivers like a briefcase shot that, I mean, it Nana was basically in a coma from this briefcase shot, and it was kind of comical. One thing that was not really followed up on, and I was waiting for it, especially towards the end, is that whatever like the argument between Swerve and Nana that we got on Dynamite, it did not play itself into this match or anything like that.
Maybe we're just supposed to take that as like, Nana has been critical of Swerve for not keeping his focus on, I guess, priority, or maybe it was just Nana warning Swerve to not get involved so close to the title match, something like that.
And Hangman being involved in the end there, potentially. So Shafir takes out Nana, and we get a paradigm shift by Swerve onto Moxley for a near fall. Oh, sorry, this is after Swerve sidesteps and Moxley accidentally hits a cutter to Marina Shafir.
Hate it when that happens.
It's tough. You know what? Everything's happening at such a quick pace. You sometimes just so Moxley has taken out multiple women this week.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Swerve gets shoved off the top to the floor, and Moxley pulls out a ladder, and they both go up the ladder. They're fighting by the desk. Swerve bites him, and Swerve stomps Moxley off the ladder through the Spanish desk. So they're both down. Shafir hands Moxley a chair when they're back in the ring, and Swerve ducks as Moxley whips this chair right into Paul Turner. As he goes down, he's dead. There's a vertebreaker by Swerve, and then Hangman Page arrives. And both men are staggering to their feet, and Hangman's looking at one. Then he looks to the other, but before he can go for the buckshot, Pac stops him, and the Death Riders are out. They put a beating on Hangman, including Page putting Claudio in front of a Busaiku by Yuta. So Yuta nails Claudio and clears them out, hits the Deadeye on Moxley. So Hangman has given Swerve pretty much the opening to win the championship, and it represents he has at least forgiven Swerve to the point that he will allow him to be champion, and he's even going to hand him over to Swerve to win.
They want you to they want you to think of it maybe as a little bit more ambiguous, because he was provoked by Moxley leading to the attack, right? But yes, we are supposed to, I think, make that assumption.
But he didn't attack Swerve. Like he could have left him laying too, and he left him fine. So they're taken out, and then with the Death Riders going after Hangman, the Ops, who just wanted to come and watch the show, made their way down and took the Death Riders out. So it looks like we have challenges for these trios belts. As Swerve whips the chair at Moxley, hits the Swerve stomp, but he's at the other side of the ring, and he's crawling towards Moxley when the lights go out. Tony Schiavone, God bless this man, sells this. He apologizes to the fans as though we've had like an electrical malfunction in the arena. We're sorry, fans. We're going to get someone on this. The lights turn on, and the Young Bucks are holding Swerve by the wrist and proceed to hit him with the BTE trigger. Moxley climbs on top of Swerve, and Paul Turner, concussed as he is, counts 3 at 31 minutes and 28 seconds. And Tony Schiavone says, it has been 6 months since we saw the Young Bucks, as Schiavone gets in his final dig at New Japan Pro Wrestling.
I mean,
it doesn't exist in Tony Schiavone's world.
Yes. He hasn't seen the Young Bucks.
Yes, Tony only reads about New Japan commentary on Twitter.
Right.
Swerve loses, Moxley retains, and the Young Bucks are back as heels, helping out the guys that ran them out of the company.
Was that the actual reason for their exit, though? Like, they lost and then they left, but they were actually they were never really against the Death Riders.
I mean, they literally got into their truck and drove off, evading the Death Riders after shredding up all their documents and such. So I'm sure there will be a deep explanation of all of this at the end.
Okay, so this will, I think, be the most controversial match coming out of the pay-per-view, as I feel like the Moxley matches often tend to be at this point. I'll say for me, it was hard for me to get into the match by this point in the pay-per-view. We were past midnight. I wasn't really tired, but I found it a challenge to be invested in the match. I thought the sort of insistence on what appeared to be hardware juice was very odd, and if it was an attempt to make you feel gross with Moxley picking at what was an open wound, I thought it achieved that, but man, I wasn't really I didn't have the patience for it, honestly. I was like, man, why do I need to watch this right now, after midnight? I thought the action in the middle, after everything we had seen already tonight, it wasn't bad, but I didn't think it was good enough to get me invested. There were, these last 2 matches. The Kenny match, did you time it?
The Kenny match?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 30-55, and this was 31-28.
We saw 2 30-plus minute matches at the end of this pay-per-view, and there was one that felt like it was a 30-minute match on this pay-per-view. The other, I think, very much justified its time. This one did not. This one, to me, just kind of felt like it was gratuitous, and it dragged. And then this finish, I might be the first to defend these sort of like finishes if it's in service of a greater story. And clearly we're getting to the Bucks versus Hangman and Swerve, okay, as a tag team. That makes fine. But man, for a pay-per-view, after this length of time and after this long of a match that wasn't that satisfying to me to begin with, it felt like such a cheap way to get to a tag team match.
Yeah, I can agree with you on the length of it. I think they're in a tough spot because you're following everything on this show, and I think that the way they thought is,
And whose fault is that?
I mean, this is your championship program, so it's going on last.
I mean, whose fault is it that the show is this long that by the time we get to the main event, it'll have been 4 hours deep?
Well, I mean, it's going to be a complaint to some, and listen, there were a lot of people. You can't say like this crowd was not into this match. Like they were really into Swerve and the idea of a title change. Like I think they bought into the fact that Swerve could win this. It was. I didn't find this to be like I'm not a big fan of any hard way spots involving like the head. I just think that like makes no sense in this day and age, but it's going to happen. So you kind of just have to accept it in these scenarios and such. I wasn't as down on this as you were. I thought this was like a better House of Torture match, but it's still a House of Torture match. That's what you're getting.
Why are you doing House of Torture matches in your main event? I understand that's sort of like the Death Riders MO, but like at a time when, you know, Tony has kind of like earned a bit of a reputation as somebody who is very much online and is very much aware of audience perceptions. We are past, like, I feel like we're like half a year now into this kind of continued constant complaint of these Death Riders matches being very unsatisfying, particularly because of the way they're booked. Why are we still ending their pay-per-views this way?
I believe that number one, if you go based on like the estimates, and again, we don't have these concrete, is like Revolution last month did a very like a good pay-per-view number for AEW of what they have been doing. And as polarizing as it is, you do have to credit like Moxley and Cope to a degree for that number. And I think if this pay-per-view does well, you also have to credit it with Moxley and Swerve on top. Like it is an ensemble that you are selling here on pay-per-view, but it's like that's the number that AEW is going to be going by for its. Like this was brought up on the call this week about the Death Riders and the negativity towards the Death Riders angle, and that's going to be the argument. Now, I can also counter that with your attendance is nothing to be all that thrilled about week to week, and that's been the case throughout this whole Death Riders angle. And
I think it's the undercard that's responsible, not so much the main event.
Well, it's very hard to discern, but it's what is the biggest promoted aspect of the show. It's typically going to be
what is the most complained about aspect of the show for most pay-per-views.
But these people are buying these shows. These people are watching
because of
these
the great
shows.
Undercard.
Well, it's like that's how you're gonna have to discern these.
Again, I don't even dislike the Death Riders. I like the fact that like there's a very dominant threat in Moxley as a champion. But why do the matches have to be booked like this?
I think that's just become like where they feel they've got to go with these. I'm with you. Like I don't think every match, like these matches don't have to be 30 plus minutes. And like, are you disappointed just with the match quality? Did you think like this was a time to take the title off of Moxley? Because those are two different things.
No, I don't. I would have been satisfied if Moxley beat Swerve in a different, more creative fashion that didn't just feel like such a cop out.
Yeah, I get that. Like the Bucks coming back, like you really need to explain this one because the Bucks just coming back and they have no interaction with the Death Riders, or we're not going to really address why they left and that they were like cowering to like that was when the Death Riders had just pretty much wreaked havoc and then they took off, which you can explain, but I will be much more disappointed if they just kind of go off and they're feuding with Swerve and there's no there's nothing to this beyond just, hey, here's a clever way for us to book our way out of this match and to have Swerve lose with a feud to go to.
Paige and Swerve need opponents, and that's why I guess the Bucks are there. You know, I'm sure they'll come up with a satisfying explanation, really, to get us anywhere.
I'm sure that is the match you're building to.
Mm-hmm.
I do wonder about like. I just feel like Swerve and Hangman is like this feud that I just feel it's one that like it's got to be something really great to put these two together. And I get there's a novelty, but to me it's like these two are these like generational rivals, and like we will see. We'll see.
When you're to finish the rivalry, when there's nowhere more to go with the rivalry, you pair them together.
Well, that's where I disagree. I don't think this rivalry should be done. I think it should be one that
pair them together so that they can have eventually another disagreement so that we can rebuild the rivalry.
What are we going to do to top what we did? Home invasions and burnt houses and arson?
So you're just saying that you don't think this rivalry should end, right?
I'm not crazy about the idea of these guys coming together as a team.
Okay. So you think they should just continue to just torment each other like forever?
I like the idea of holding this one out, because I think there's going to be a time that one of these two is going to be your world champion, and I think that is.
I think you could still get there. Like again, we're getting off topic at this point, but I just think that this is a natural progression of their story. They're both baby faces currently. They've evolved in their relationship to be able to understand why each has done what they've done. I think a tag team feels like a natural progression.
Listen, if it's done well, I won't have any complaints about it. And that's clearly where they are likely building this towards with them. So there you go. That was the show. Listen, I'm going to say I really thought this was a phenomenal pay-per-view overall. Length aside, I thought that it was very, very strong, with one of the best matches of the year. And honestly, like the weak parts of this show were pretty minimal. I would say like the tag title match, I thought was the weakest match on the show. But like everything else on the show, like Monet and Julia Hart, like if that was your, like, again, like I thought like there was a lot of, like it turned out well in the end. And I thought like Julia Hart got really over in this match as well. It wasn't one of Mercedes like classics, but it was hardly like this negative either on this show. So yeah, those were my overall thoughts.
I thought every match was strong, and I apologize if I'm too hard on the main event, but I also don't apologize because I grade that one with the totality.
You probably are reflecting more people's opinions than mine is.
I have to grade the matches not just in a vacuum, but as a total, part of a whole viewing. And by the time I get 4.5 hours deep into a show, I'm expecting something that much greater to hold my attention, and that this main event did not do that, especially with the finish that they gave us.